Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Sprint. This is episode 10. This week, we're going to be talking about Super Mario World a little bit later, so get excited for that. But as always, just want to remind people it's still a fairly new show for anyone who hasn't really caught it yet. This is a talk show that we like to do twice or every 2 weeks, rather. Just talking about speedrunning, things that have happened since the last show, things that are going on for us personally in speedrunning, and also we like to go over a run in more detail with a special guest who will be joining us later. For now, though, we're going to kick it off with some news of the week that's been going on. News of the last 2 weeks, I guess. And the first one's a pretty big one that we've been kind of alluding to for a while and waiting on. Darkman, I'm going to throw it over to you. What we got? What's the big news?
Sure. So Super Mario Odyssey, we did talk about a few shows ago. It was approaching the fabled sub 1 hour mark. Weren't sure I kind of thought it was going to happen last show, to be honest, but it didn't. But just happened over the weekend. We had the 59.59. Why not? We're going for the sub hour. We'll just cut it close. Keep it right there at that 59.59. But yeah, Necrovita being the first runner to eclipse that sub hour mark. And incidentally, literally like hours later, a Japanese runner by the name of Goryuya also got a 59.59. So
yeah. That's crazy.
Once one runner gets it, the floodgates open, I guess.
I think it was less than 24 hours later.
Yeah.
And there were like 4 different runners all gunning for the sub 1, maybe even more than that. They were all grinding and stuff. So it was really cool to see not only 1, but 2 of them break it like right away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. You've talked about this before, Darkman, but like sometimes it seems like when that one just barrier gets hit, gets like broken, sometimes the floodgates open and everybody just like starts PBing left and right because now there's no mental block or anything.
Yeah. I mean, basically you alluded to it, the mental block. There's always this like huge mental aspect in speedrunning, and that like, you have like, yes, it's the time, numbers are arbitrary, yada, 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 but it's a big deal, right? This is a big mark in like speedrunning, even if it wasn't Super Mario Odyssey, like, if it's your favorite speed game and you're hitting that sub hour mark for the first time, it's a significant milestone. So naturally, you're going to feel that extra added pressure to kind of try to achieve that and, maybe do things you normally wouldn't. So it's definitely a big deal to kind of get over that mental block. And once you get over that mental block, like I said, the floodgates are going to open. I imagine we'll be seeing a lot more PBs from a lot more runners, and 59.59 probably won't stay for very long, but it's still cool.
I know that's the best part is like, this is just the beginning of a series of PBs that I'm sure we'll see. Like,
absolutely. And I mean, 2 tied world records, that by itself is also crazy. The fact that they have the same exact time and everybody was gunning for it. It's not like there was only a couple seconds to save. You have a lot more possibility for continuing on from here.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what keeps happening with it. We'll have a clip about that a little bit later. But for now, let's move on to our next news item, which we actually do have a clip for. And that is that there were a couple of new skips found pretty recently. One especially was in Banjo-Kazooie. There's a new Furnace Fun skip that was found. And this was actually a really big deal. You can see it rolling on the screen now. But basically, at the end of the game, there's this long series of trivia questions that you have to answer, and there was already a way to skip basically like half or more of this whole puzzle thing, but there was a lot of RNG associated with the parts that they couldn't skip. There's trivia questions you have to answer that are based on like hints that you get from Gruntilda throughout the run, to the point where like the runners had a Gruntilda calculator where you would go and talk to her a couple times and throw it all into a calculator. It'll tell you what pattern you're probably getting. But with this new skip, which is just, it looks like it's not, the craziest thing to pull off either. It's not like some impossible thing. I mean, I don't know enough about Banjo-Kazooie personally, or like having performed it or anything like that to know, but it completely gets rid of all of that aspect of it. Like you no longer need to worry about this crazy RNG and having to go and pick up hints and stuff. Like this is a 2-minute skip or something like that.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, it's the sub 2 hour. That's I mean, we were talking about times that are landmark in games, and that's significant one as well, especially for a game as kind of old as Banjo-Kazooie is.
Yeah, Stivity Bobo, one of the the premier runner for Banjo-Kazooie when it comes to it. He's held record for so long in this game, and he immediately got a new record.
Exactly.
By like a minute or something off of this 2-minute skip, something that I'm sure will continue to be improved, because it's a 2-minute skip and he PB'd by less than 2 minutes. So but it's just cool to see it happen that quickly. Sometimes it's not always that fast.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things about finding these skips, I can like relate to this a lot, because the same thing kind of happened to Mega Man 5 back in the day. Obviously, it's not a 2-hour run, but we found a refight skip that skips the entirety of the refight, save for one boss, and it saves about 2 minutes. So all of a sudden, you had this like floodgates open, whereas not many people were really running the game. But like right after the refight skip found, everybody started playing the game.
Mhm.
Like whether they had old runs that they want to improve upon, or they never started running before. So it was kind of interesting seeing like the runners that like were kind of deep rusting, and they were like, oh yeah, their splits are like plus 1 minute and 30 seconds, and then they get the skip. Hey, look, I PB'd by 30 seconds. It's kind of cool, like seeing that like transformation from like going from like I'm getting these incremental PBs because the time save is free, to seeing like, okay, I'm actually like back to normal. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of cool to see like reinvigorate a scene, which I imagine this is doing.
Oh yeah, like I personally always, when I tend to set a game aside for a while, I know that for me, generally the thing that's going to bring me back is something new being found.
Absolutely.
Yeah, new tech, new skips, whatever it may be, even just a lot of new minor optimizations that make the run feel a lot different from when I last ran it. And I mean, this is the exact kind of thing that could pull a lot of people back to the game, and especially because like I said, you had to go and talk to Gruntilda several times throughout the run before to find out hints towards like the RNG at the end. And I imagine that most, if not all of that, is gone now. And so it's, even the routing or even like some of the movement throughout the run has changed because of this. It's not just this one thing at the end, which can always feel a little good when you're coming back and you want things to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. One of the biggest skips to happen in speedrunning lately. And then the same period, basically, we got another one.
Why not? It's the skip show this week.
Exactly.
It's great.
There's a new Half-Life 2 skip that just recently got found called the Red Letter Day skip. And Frozen, you did a little bit of a deeper dive on this one. What exactly is going on? I mean, you could tell that things are broken and crazy, but that's Half-Life 2 for you in a nutshell. So what exactly goes on with this? Why does it save so much time?
So this one, basically, you're getting a lot of out of bounds tricks, going into different trigger zones to load yourself into other ones. And then eventually just basically bypassing an entire level where you were just walking through normally, or backwards hopping, really, which is one of the main movement techs within Half-Life 2. And you're basically going to be skipping over a whole bunch of this. It requires a whole bunch of pretty precisely placed items and backwards hopping. So like right there, that movement is exactly what you need to do. If you do anything else, you'll just fall right back out of bounds. With these planks, you have to place it in that I think it's within a 3 pixel range or something like that before it will actually allow you to clip out. I mean, it's, to put it this way, I cannot fully explain to you the depth of how much goes into this one skip. There's full videos of it that I mean, I watched it probably like an hour straight and over and over again, and I can only give you a high level overview. But it skips an entire level, saving several minutes off of a run, and it can break inbounds. I mean, this could make a separate category even.
Right. I could tell you from like just the little bit that I saw of this when putting together this clip and everything, that there's some really cool things about it that aren't immediately obvious. One is that apparently there's no randomness involved with the trick, which is always a big thing for a new skip that saves so much time, because sometimes it's like, oh well, it's based on just this object behaving randomly or something, or this enemy AI behaving randomly, and that's the worst feeling thing when that happens, because then it means that sometimes you're not going to get it by no fault of your own. But it was also really cool. The runner who found the skip, basically, they said that the hard part was all this movement out of bounds afterwards. and that it's like really precise, really tough, which it means it's gonna be really hard to do for a while, but eventually people will get consistent. And he thought getting out of bounds with the plank was really easy, was like the easy part of the trick. And then there was somebody in chat, another runner, who had the exact opposite, where he said getting out of bounds with the plank was the hard part, but doing all the movement on top was the easy part. And the thing that I take away from that, the really cool part about that, is that there will be setups for both, and it won't take very long. Because if one person can already do one part of it pretty consistently, and the other person can already do the other part of it pretty consistently, then you're going to get together, and eventually everyone's going to be able to do the trick. And like, instead of, sometimes these kinds of skips can be known about and still take years before they end up in a route because they're just too precise. But I don't think this will be one of them, especially for how much time it saves.
Yep. And especially with out of bounds tricks in general, you can find different movement patterns and different ways to execute that movement in order to make it more consistent. It just it'll evolve over time. Even if it's great right now, it'll be incredible later on once they have time to refine it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't played Half-Life 2 in a while, but this is towards the beginning of the game, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so like this is even better. So like even in its infancy, right? It's one of those tricks where it's just like even if it is seemingly hard, you also just go for it because you know if you don't get it, all right, just reset your run. Let's start over again. So, you know, it's nice. Like I love seeing like big tricks like this get found and just like completely change like the dynamics of a run.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, again, we are just touching the surface level of both of these skips, so be sure to like check with the actual communities of like the people that run these games if you want to know a little bit more about them, Banjo-Kazooie or Half-Life 2. Sure, you can go to speedrun.com and go to the game pages for each of those. I guarantee they'll have like a link to Discord or the forum that they check and stuff like that. But yeah, with that, we'll move on to our next topic. And this one I'm going to throw back to Darkman again, because I think this one excited you quite a bit when it jumped out.
Yeah, so you know, this is a pretty interesting project. So there's a GDQ staff member and beloved community member, Omnigamer, has announced a new project of his that was it like last week. He's creating a device. He calls it Chimera. That's a tentative name. And it's this device that allows you to kind of remap controller buttons universally. So by universally, I mean like you plug this into like any single like console out there, or PC, of course, if you'd like. Not that that would really make much sense, but hey, who knows? You can plug it into any console, and it allows you to essentially play any sort of controller that you want. You know, if you want to play like a I don't know, PS4 controller on a Nintendo, sure, by all means, this should do it. Do you want to play like wireless controllers on like a Nintendo where you otherwise couldn't? Yeah, you can do that. It also like has allows you to create macros, do things like has a native input viewer. So
that's a big one.
Yeah, there's a lot of neat features to it. There's also a configurable turbo mode. So like literally, if your controller does not have turbo buttons, this thing will create that functionality for you. So it's a very interesting idea. You know, I have a kind of unique perspective on this because I actually knew about this project like months ago. He talked about this, and like it's a very interesting idea because you know I don't think like people really get a chance to understand this, but like there's like especially with like for instance like my past experience, there's like a lot of runners that want to use like the Super Nintendo controller for the NES because they feel like it's like easier to use. It isn't as small, so it doesn't like hurt your hands as much. So there's a lot of like really neat applications for it, but I think there's a lot of intrigue with it. And I know Hobbs, you kind of want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's on the one hand, like this is super great. I think this is something that absolutely should exist. It's super cool, and it's something that will be adopted by a lot of communities and stuff like that. And especially, it's great for accessibility. I mean, you want to talk about, like you were saying, people, certain controllers hurt their hands more than others, or something, or just give like it. Just some of them are just more comfortable than others, or they can perform a skip a bit easier. But there's definitely going to be I don't want to say backlash. There's just going to be a lot of discussions when this thing actually exists and is out in the market effectively. Because a lot of communities right now, don't allow things like turbo, and macros are almost always banned in basically every game, unless the game itself like allows you to do them, because it's that blurs the line between a tool assisted speedrun and a regular one. And so this is the fact that you could do this with basically any controller on basically any game console or PC is, that's a pretty big deal. That could be a little scary. But there's that part that you mentioned where it has an input log, and that's the key. That's kind of the key factor, is like, because there's an authenticated input log, you could theoretically say, oh, we allow this program, but we don't, or we allow this device, but we don't allow you to use macros with it, or we don't allow you to use turbo button. And if you use this program, you must submit this log. And that log is something that supposedly, I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but it's still in its infant stage at the moment. But supposedly, it will be tamper proof. There will be a way of authenticating it so that you can't just like, oh, here's a text file with the inputs I used. That was totally it. So that is a big deal. And it's also a cool thing for, like, if you ever wanted to replicate runs or something, you could theoretically do it. It could be helpful for tasking. I'm not sure. A lot of task tools already have their own kind of stuff around that. But
see exactly what your inputs were, and then being able to improve upon them. Have somebody else look at it and say, hey, why are you doing this? Or it's the next evolution. I mean, we were talking about input displays, and seeing those are helpful for a lot of people learning runs. Getting a log of it could be an evolution on that, could be more helpful for some people.
If someone's trying to say like, oh, why do I keep failing this trick? Why can't I get this one trick? And they have this log or whatever, just send it off to the people who are a little bit more experienced with the game. They say, oh, you're doing this 2 frames late, so try pressing this button a little bit earlier. Like, that kind of thing can be really helpful. Again, we don't know. I don't want to like make too many promises about what it can do or anything, because we're not the ones making it, and we haven't really seen it yet. But it still could be really useful for that kind of thing. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting product, and something that, I mean, I'll probably get, because it just has enough functionality to make it super useful in so many different applications.
Yeah, I'd definitely be curious. I think the input log, the input viewer, just from like a stream perspective, not even from like from an anti-cheat perspective, this is fantastic. But like on a more like personal level, like having that dedicated input viewer there that I can like hopefully display on stream, which I imagine that would be the goal of it.
Hopefully,
that'd be like fantastic. I would love to see that.
I did understand it more as an input log, but you could probably find ways to get a live feed of the log and then make an input viewer around it or something like that. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, for those of you who don't know about input displays in general, as of right now, you usually have to have a separate piece of hardware that actually allows you to capture your inputs and then display it on a virtual controller on stream. So it's a little bit of a setup in the having this kind of cuts out the middleman.
And for a lot of, some consoles and controllers, like, they don't even have an input thing. For PC, it's pretty easy for the most part. Like, getting an input viewer for your keyboard or for even a controller is pretty simple on PC. But it's the consoles that this device is targeted at to begin with. I do think it still will be potentially useful on PC. You were saying, Darkman, that it might be a little bit weird, but like, I've run into issues in the past of controllers not being super remappable with other software. For example, like Xbox controllers that are natively supported by Windows sometimes like are the hardest ones to actually remap the buttons on, because the game will still like read the raw input before whatever software you're using to remap them. Things like Steam's configuration support have made this a lot better in recent times and stuff, but like I've run into nightmares with button remapping until pretty recently, so I could wax poetic about that for hours. But
no, that's a good point. Like, thinking about programs like Joy to Key, like I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's one of those necessary evil sort of things. So maybe this could kind of be that replacement for it, or it's just a lot more smoother and easier to use. So
yeah, All right. Well, for now, it seems like we're just waiting to hear more about it, waiting to see some prototypes show up and stuff like that. But we'll move on. It's just cool to get that announcement. And obviously, it's in enough of a state that Omni was willing to announce it. So, like, that to me, what that says is this project is moving forward and will have a thing, show up, which is great. Our next news item, though, is an event called Speedrun Sessions being put on by Grand Pooh Bear and Red Bull, which I believe this is like a tour that they're actually doing, going around the country, presumably, or at least to several different cities. This is just really neat. I don't know a ton about it other than that my roommate is going out to MC the first one.
There you go.
That's all you need to know.
But it's pretty cool to see more events like this, especially with some funding behind them. We've talked about esports stuff forever, but if anyone wanted to jump in on this one.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this the first event. This is a Grand Pooh Bears event, Speedrun Sessions. The first event is going to be April 4th, and if you happen to be in the Portland, Oregon area, you're in luck because that's where it's going to be. So it's at the Ground Control Classic Arcade. So I guess the idea is to go to like different barcades around the country as part of the tour and kind of just like show off speedrunning. From what I understand, like this event is going to be basically like just a showcase of a couple of runs by the runners. So we have Grand Pooh Bear, Oats and Goats, and Andy are the runners, and then Spike, as JHobz alluded to, is the MC of the event. So he's kind of, I imagine, providing commentary and just kind of like talking up speedrunning and whatnot to the crowd.
Hosting and stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, hosting, yeah. So yeah, it seems like a really cool event, like Hop said, just kind of like bring speedrunning to a different crowd, like maybe not necessarily the masses, so to speak, but like just to a different crowd, maybe people that are familiar with speedruns and want to kind of get a chance to check these people out in person, or just people that aren't really familiar with speedruns. So this is pretty cool. I'm super excited for this event, and I do know that Grand Pooh Bear said he's planning on bringing it to other stops in the country. So I'll be curious to see where they're stopping. Hopefully, where I live, because I'd like to check it out. Just saying. But yeah, this is
hint,
awesome.
Yeah, I know. Like the other thing is, Grand Pooh Bear was saying that he wants to kind of help bring live speedrunning events to more people, like you were saying, and especially for people who can't like take an entire week off work to go to GDQ or something like that, or an entire weekend to go to a speedrunning event, or the travel is the big problem for them, right. Stuff like that.
Sure.
He's hoping to hit a bunch of different cities, but starting with Portland. I'm just really curious to know how it goes. I don't believe there's going to be a live stream with it, right?
Wasn't clear.
Yeah.
So
there wasn't all that much information on the specifics of the event, just kind of who was involved and locations and dates. The actual details were a little bit sparse, but I don't think that's like, maybe I missed it. I'm not entirely positive. Either way, though, bringing more speedrunning types of events is really cool. I mean, this year we started having Twitch rivals do speedrun stuff, which is by itself really interesting. But this is a different brand, again, different than speedrunning marathons and different than Twitch rivals.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out. I mean, maybe it will be live streamed for all we know too, and then we can watch. It'll be cool. Even if not, it's just cool to have different types of things. I love seeing people experiment with events and stuff like that, because there are a lot of speedrunning marathons nowadays that are benefiting charities and stuff, and that's all great. But it's always exciting when you can see one of those or another event and anything kind of mix up the format and try something new, because that's just how the scene grows and gets better and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it'll be cool.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's pretty much going to do it for us for the news. But that is not, we're not quite to our speedrun analysis yet, because Darkman's got a hot take for us, apparently. What's going on, Darkman?
It's kind of a lukewarm take, and more like an apology letter, I guess, as you may say. So, as many of you know, the games list, the Summer Games Done Quick 2019 games list is coming out
Not familiar.
tomorrow.
Not sure what that is.
Well, Summer Games Done Quick 2019 is
I was really hoping you would continue with that.
just go on for
that's
half an
enough.
hour.
So yeah, so SGDQ 2019 games list is coming on tomorrow, and let me tell you, I've watched a lot of videos. In case you're not familiar, we have gotten over 1,500 submissions, and probably about 130 of those or so are going to be accepted. So less than 10% are going to be accepted. So it's like saying, listen, I've watched all your videos, I've watched your speed runs. Like, I know you think they're great, and you know what? I'm sure they're great. Like, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying they're terrible. I'm not saying they're mediocre. I'm just saying you didn't make the cut. If you didn't make the cut, I don't know if you made the cut or not, because I don't know who I'm talking to at this minute. And also, it's not 100% finalized anyway, so I can't say that for certain. But I just want to say, like, just do the numbers, right? Like, if 130 get accepted, 1,500, submissions, that's like saying if you got a 90 on a test, that's not good enough. So like 90 is really good, right? But like it's not good enough to get on the games list. So I'm just saying, all right, just level with me here. Like, please don't be upset at us. Don't like take my head off. Don't throw me at the stake. It's not that I hate you. It's not that I don't love you. It's just that we had to make a decision, and unfortunately, for 100 or 1,370 submissions or so, that decision was reject. And for those who happen to get in, congratulations. You're very lucky. You're very, for whatever reason, whether your game is amazing, it's a fantastic watch, whatever it may be, you happen to be in the silly block and you have a really silly game. Let me tell you some silly stuff. But anyway, congratulations. Like, I just want to say for those that get accepted, don't like ever forget that like it's really hard to get a game in. I imagine most people know that, right? Because like for most people that have gotten games accepted, they've probably gotten games rejected as well. They've been through many marathons where they've never gotten a game in, and the man is pointing. It sucks. It really sucks. So I know that I've been through that. Even me on the games committee, I've been through that myself. I've been through marathons where I'm just going to get a game in. So it sucks. So ever the more reason to savor the moment when you get a game in, and just put on a good show. Like, don't worry too much about like, oh, I gotta make sure I got world record for my marathon performance. Like that's not gonna happen. That happens maybe once an event at best. So just don't worry about that, but appreciate it, savor the moment, have fun. Let it go.
There's the gentlest way of saying your speed game sucks.
I don't want to say your speed game sucks.
No, we've talked about it before, right? Like, there's a lot. Sometimes you got 10 games that are all pretty similar, more or less the same, and which of the 10 that you ended up getting into is effectively random. It's just for different reasons. You had it as a kid, or it's just it caught your eye at GameStop, or what? I mean, who goes to GameStop anymore? But it caught your eye in the Steam library or something, or it's just like you just got into it. But there's like 9 other games that look totally the same for the most part, slightly different for different reasons. So yeah, it doesn't. Your speed game doesn't necessarily suck.
I will say a lot of like, after watching all those videos, like a lot of things are just kind of like overlapping each other and being like, have I watched this? Oh no, it was that game. Okay, yeah. No, they're actually different games, even though the movement looks very similar. that happens a lot.
So. Well, that was like the lightest of hot takes I can possibly imagine.
I gotta let people off easy, all right? Then next show, maybe we can go into like super hot takes.
It's also the first hot take, so you can't just dive into the hottest of the takes.
That's right.
Can't be too hot.
That's right.
Well, with that, we're going to go to a very short break as we get our guest authorblues in, who's going to talk to us about the Super Mario World 96 exit world record by Louis, right? I believe. And yeah, I mean, we're just get excited because this is a cool one, and we're going to be going in pretty in depth into this run and really celebrating it. We like to look at the highs and the lows of the run and see it like, oh, what spots can people save time if they're going for it. This one doesn't have a lot of lows, and I'll just tell you right now, it's mostly highs. So we're basically going to be celebrating this thing. and talking about just a few minor mistakes. So we'll catch you all in just a moment. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now joined by a very special guest, Mr. authorblues. We'll give him a virtual hand. But yeah, so Author, you're going to be breaking down this run for us. Tell us a little bit about, I guess, first of all, just what's 96 Exit, and also just what's your history with the game? Why are you here telling us a little bit about it?
So Super Mario World was the first game I ever speedran, and I've kind of been in the community for about 6 years now. 96 Exit, by the way, this game isn't really broken down into any percent or 100% because that name doesn't make a lot of sense for Super Mario World. The game has 74 levels, and of those levels, some of them can be beaten multiple ways for a total of 96 different ways to beat a level. And so 96 Exit is purely just it's purely just trying to beat every single exit of every single level, beating it every way possible. So that means sometimes you play multiple levels multiple times.
All right, interesting. And well, I'd say interesting. I knew that we talked about this, but but yeah, we will be jumping into it here. We got Louis is doing the record. Why don't you tell us a little bit as the VOD's playing here, just about kind of the history of this run in particular? Did Louis come out of nowhere? What's was he been around for a long time? What's up with this one here?
Yeah, so my knowledge of this category only goes back as far as when I started speedrunning the game in, what was it? I guess that would have been 2013. X-Paco, I believe, still had the world record, which was at the time a 124.11. And the run took a little while to finally cut the mark to a 23, and for a really long time it stuck at 123. Really small improvements were made, but it wasn't really obvious that time would be able to be saved to get down to a 122. And over a very long period of time, with improvements being made to strats and finding new techniques, and really just people getting better and better at playing the game, eventually that hurdle was broken by Sten, who is Steven, if you're not familiar with that name, Sten 1704. I guess it's just Sten now. But he broke the world record and got a 122, I think 59, famously changing his Twitter bio to future former world record holder 96 Exit.
That's great.
That's good.
And since then, 122 is still a pretty amazing mark to beat. At this time, I think there's still something like 6 to 8 runs that are in the 122 range at this point, so it's become much more accessible. I think, as you were mentioning earlier in the episode, there does sometimes tend to be this mental block, and as soon as one person hits it, everyone's mindset sort of changes from this you know, unattainable goal to now we know it's possible, so a lot of people can do it. In fact, after Sten got the 122, it felt like it wasn't too much longer before a bunch of other people came along and optimized the run, until I think Green Death Flavor brought it down to, I think it was a 122.40 something right around then. And all this time, Louis had kind of come out of nowhere. Louis was a formerly he was a SMW composer. He frequented the SMW Central forums, which if you're not aware of what that website is, that's pretty much the main hub for all Super Mario World ROM hacking. Super Mario World has famously probably the most active ROM hacking scene in all of retro gaming, and that's the hub for all of ROM hacking. And he frequented the SMW Central forums as someone who had produced a lot of like music edits, created his own custom SPC files, which are the music files for Super Mario World edits. So that was kind of where he came from, and I guess at some point decided he wanted to take a shot at playing the game and running the game. I don't know exactly how long he was running before he got the world record, but I think to a lot of people, myself especially, it felt like he really came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's like a really different story, just coming in out of music, you know. Like,
as far as I know, just based on being around in Super Mario World areas, he seemed to do a lot of ILs and was very proficient in those. He often would be lecturing people like Truman or Stan on, hey, you should be doing this strat instead of the one that you're currently doing, or you need to improve, this is a half second faster to do this, etc. And I think that's kind of a lot of how he started, but I don't think, as far as my conversations with a lot of people went, it didn't seem like people knew that he was planning on running the game. It just seemed like he ran the ILs to run the ILs.
Yeah, he had a lot of passion for the game, but I think it took him quite a while to get to the point where he was actually doing RTAs.
Yeah.
So kind of talk to me a little bit about 96 as a speed run. You know, because I feel like, you know, a lot of people who are familiar with Super Mario World, they think, okay, so this runner is probably just like using Cape a whole bunch of, you know, all the times, and they're just flying over levels, and then that's it. You know, pretty easy run, not really much going on. And well, some of that may be accurate. It's not, doesn't really tell the whole picture, does it?
Yeah, I feel like if you sort of jump into a 96 exit run, it really feels like you end up seeing a lot of cape flight. If you just were to randomly scrub a YouTube video of a 96 exit world record, you're probably going to find a spot where they're flying through the air. But Akiso actually, a former world record holder and an incredibly proficient Super Mario World runner himself, actually did the math at one point, actually figuring out, played at an optimal level, what percentage of the game is just sort of brainless flying through a level. And I think it came out to something like, if I remember correctly, 17%. It was like 15 to 20%, something like that. So there's actually a lot of flying in this game, but there is a lot of flying that takes a specific amount of technique. And so while the cape is used quite frequently as a tool and as a movement resource, it actually has a lot of tech associated with it, and it's kind of non-trivial. And so you do get those occasional stages where you take off at the beginning of the level and fly until the game stops you. But that's not the majority of the run.
You know what, Auth, we ought to hire you to do segues, because that seems like the perfect segue into starting to break down this run here. So our first clip is actually in Morton's Castle, if I understand correctly, and you're going to see some of that flying tech immediately. What exactly is going on here?
Yeah, so there's two types of flying in Super Mario World. There's the regular cape flying that you see so often, and then there's this spin flying technique. So there's two buttons you can use to jump. One of them is a spin jump, and if you have a cape, you get this spin fly technique. And you get a lot of different types of control depending on which type of flying you choose to do. This room in particular is a vertical level, and so because of that, you have to sort of employ this technique where you continuously take off and re-land on platforms, maintaining your flight speed or your full running speed at each point so that you are able to take off again at each part. And this, what sort of makes this room really interesting is that there are some really aggressive strats you can use, but because this is so heavily cycle-based, there's a lot of sort of pulling back and pushing forward simultaneously, trying to figure out how to make it in time for some part that might be gated by a cycle, but not rushing so fast that you end up hitting a wall that's in your way because you move too quickly. And so it does take a lot of finesse to do so. There's a lot of little things going on here, things like being able to pick up that springboard as you're spin flying. That actually is a relatively challenging thing to do. You don't instantly pick it up. As a matter of fact, running into a springboard actually kills all of your momentum. So the act of picking it up as you're running into it is pretty challenging. And then at the very end, switching from cape to fire flower, because you don't really need the cape right at the end, and allows you to more quickly use the fire flower against the boss in the castle.
Man, and I bring it up, I swear, it's like every episode at this point, because we so often have 2D platformers on here and stuff. Climbs in 2D platforming speedrunning are always great. Like, it doesn't matter what your mechanics are, they're always some of the coolest stuff, because you're instead of doing max jumps everywhere or something, or trying to do as many max jumps as possible, you're actually trying to minimize your height a lot of the time to just barely land on the ledge so you can get your next jump started. And even with this, it's a whole different beast with watching the spin flies just go up and up and up, and sometimes down to cut down underneath a platform so you can jump up again. It's all really cool to me.
Yeah, it's really where a lot of the finesse comes from in a run like this. With a 2D platformer, often you're just jumping from left to right, trying to land in relatively safe spaces and make constant progress. But I think climbs, you're right, it does offer a great opportunity for finesse. And I think vertical levels do tend to be the place that separates the high-level runners from the mid-level runners.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we'll jump to our next one, the Vanilla Dome 1, I believe. Something in particular in this one, though, that you want to be talking about here.
Yeah, so this is really the beginning of a huge glitch gauntlet in this run. So this is the very beginning of World 3. And in World 3, a lot of the stages go from being just normally challenging to being relatively glitch heavy. Not all glitches are legal in Super Mario World 96 Exit. There's a few that are banned, things like putting fake goal orbs into your inventory box so you can instantly beat levels. But more or less, most of the glitches are actually allowed. And this one in particular is a item or a box duplication glitch. So by duplicating a block over top of a Yoshi coin, you actually transform the box into a different type of box. And we'll see this a few times throughout this run, where the special type of box it's changed into, the contents of that box depends on what its X position is, so where it is horizontally in the level. So first he creates this fake box. It's actually invisible at the time. And then he duplicates it to the right one so that it turns into Yoshi Wings. Naturally, it would be a key at that location, but by duplicating it one block to the right, it becomes Yoshi Wings. And it's really hard to point out why this is so impressive watching Louis do this. It's a lot of 1 to 2 frame tricks, the actual block duplication glitch itself. And then in addition to this, Louis is just incredibly efficient at doing so. The time left on the clock when he grabbed the Yoshi Wings were a 380, which is an incredibly impressive time in RTA. A lot of runners, find themselves somewhere in the ballpark of that time, or maybe even up to 10 seconds slower. He's doing every piece of this incredibly fast, and all the while he's holding a Buzzy Beetle that is going to wake up and damage him if he doesn't finish it fast enough. So,
Wow.
And also, I want to talk about the timer for a second, and keep in mind that the timer counts down from a certain number. So the higher the number, the faster he's gone. Yeah.
In standard Nintendo seconds.
Yes.
3
Very important, yeah.
per second.
yeah, so this is, it's a pretty challenging level as it is. Doing this efficiently, I consider myself a somewhat competent player. I've got a time that's within 2 minutes of world record, and for me, a good version of this stage is about 10 seconds slower than Louis does it. This is incredibly challenging to do at the speed he does, and these are the little places where world records are made. Being able to do this that efficiently, and then do that on top of the other 10 stages that are about to come that are also equally challenging.
All right. Well, speaking of the 10 stages about to come, we're going to jump to Vanilla Dome 2 here. In this case, we'll see that more of the block duplication later, actually, in a different way. But this time we're looking at a clip here, I believe.
Yeah, Yoshi clips are so incredibly complicated to explain and fickle. What he's trying to do is he's trying to use Yoshi to go out of bounds. It turns out that the key and the keyhole are right to the side of the beginning of the level, so he wants to clip out of bounds in order to get to it a little bit faster. But there's a lot going on here. So little things like trying to maximize his speed getting into the water. And when you start the level, you have a certain sub-pixel value for Yoshi. Actually clipping out of bounds is a pretty detailed science experiment involving Yoshi's sub-pixel position in the level. And as it turns out, if you were to just do this with no setup, on average, your success rate would be something like 50 to 60% chance of success. Or sorry, 50 to 60% chance of failure. Because there's really no control you have once you get sort of into the wall. The part that Louis can control is the part where he gets into the wall. But once he's in the wall and he wants to fully clip out of bounds, that's out of his control. And there's certain setups he can do here. So for instance, the setup you'll see him do is right as he's going under this low ceiling, he dismounts Yoshi just for a moment. And that changes Yoshi's sub-pixel value in such a way that raises his chance of success to, I believe, 75%. There's still you can't do better than a 25% chance of failure. But he raises his chance of success considerably, assuming that he gets into the wall on his first try.
That's one of the interesting things about this game too. You mentioned how it's probably like the most ROM hacked game ever, or like one of the biggest communities around custom mods for a game like this. And that means that there are a lot of really awesome tools for delving into the intricacies of how the game works, which means all this kind of stuff that you're talking about has actually been like scienced out. I mean, you yourself have worked on a randomizer for this game in the past, so you've delved into looking at exactly how it works.
This is probably the best understood game in existence.
Right, that's what I was going to ask. Basically, would you say that this game is figured out in terms of just like the actual ways it works? Not to say that doesn't mean that there isn't still room for improvement of new skips and stuff like that, but yeah.
I'd say that for its complexity, sort of on a sliding scale based on its complexity, this is probably the most well understood game. I mean, there is a dedicated tool-assisted speedrunning community for this game. Typically, tool-assisted speedrunners sort of multitask. They work on a lot of games. There's a whole community just for tool-assisted speedrunning for this game. And on top of that, there's people who don't even do real-time speedruns or tool-assisted speedruns. There's people who just specialize in understanding the science of this game. I mean, Kaizoman, who's probably one of the most well-known tool-assisted speedrunners of this game, maintains a list on Super Mario World Central, SMW Central, of just the glitch compendium. It's like a list of 1,000 different glitches known in the game. Not all of them useful, not all of them meaningful for speedrunning or tool-assisted speedrunning, but just incredibly detailed descriptions of how everything works. We have a full disassembly for this game, which is uncommon for Super Nintendo games. Annotated disassembly. So there's something that's not understood, at least on some level.
And even with the practice tools, so the way that you actually practice this game, I mean, the ROM hack or the practice tool that's used for this, it allows so much functionality, and you can do pretty much anything. You can give yourself a power up when you can't even get one in that level. You can save load in every single area. I mean, it is fully fledged. They have everything that you can want for this game.
Yeah. It's the quintessential practice ROM hack, and probably deserves credit for setting the stage for all practice ROM hacks that have come after it. It was made by Dotzer who is also a incredibly talented Super Mario World speedrunner, has done his own tool-assisted speedrunning and science on the game, all of that. So,
well, we'll see more of those glitches and stuff in the future. But first, we're gonna bounce now to just some good movement, some good execution here in this in the red switch palace, basically.
Yeah. So this is probably one of my favorite levels to see done well. That first room is really the secret sauce there. And doing this level sort of a more casual way only loses a few seconds. But by spinning on the P switch and clearing out a path for himself, he can actually grab a shell and throw it in front of him to clear a path, and actually use that to maintain flight as he goes through this pipe here. which is a kind of interesting trick. It's used a few times in the run, but you can actually fly into a pipe and fly out the other side of it if you sort of understand how that mechanic works. What sort of makes this an interesting highlight here is that this strat right here, if you don't really know exactly what you're doing, spinning your cape as you're running into a Koopa has a chance of failure. Your hitbox for your cape sort of oscillates in front of you and behind you very quickly. And if you get unlucky, you just hit the wrong frame, that Koopa's going to hit you despite the fact you were spinning your cape. And so this is a very slightly dangerous strat to save a very small amount of time, like 1 second. So it's kind of fun to see.
That's that IL practice, man. That individual level practice really showing. Well, we won't harp on this one for too long. We'll just bounce back over to Vanilla Dome 2 again, but this time for something different.
Yeah, so in Vanilla Dome 2 here, this is really where you start to see water movement. We'll see it a few times in the run. At this point, this is not the first water level we've seen, but I think this is a pretty good example of, for instance, using this Buzzy Beetle to swim through the water. And the Buzzy Beetle will wake up if you don't do anything. So he's constantly dropping it, spinning it to restart its timer, and then stunning it again. And so that's really how he has to get through the water. And then this is really just a fun swag trick to show off. Anyone can do it. If you just pull up your cape right as you're about to hit a ceiling, you just sort of stick to it. We refer to that as sticky fly. It's just a fun, pretty easy to execute trick. It's not necessary to do that stage optimally, but boy, does it just look good to do.
Yeah, you gotta have some swag in the run, of course.
Yeah,
of course. Well, especially because he missed the yump on the button before. We let it go, but I went back. We won't dive into it and explain it or anything, but those of you who know. This one's, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's good. But now we have a really big trick, the raft skip. Okay, what exactly is happening here?
So this one was actually, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was actually found by Dode, formerly Dodecahedron. And I think it was sort of part of some work he was doing on a theory task for this game. So a theory task is when someone makes a tool-assisted speedrun for a game, but it's meant to simulate what an optimal human would actually be capable of. So not doing anything that's overly frame perfect or too many mashes per second, or just sort of restricting your skill set to a smaller set of tools available to you so that a human could actually do it. And this trick is actually pretty complicated. This trick here is one of my favorites in the game purely because it's the only trick I know of that requires you to hit all 4 buttons on the controller at the same time for vastly different reasons, but all 4 of them need to be hit. So what's happening here is typically when you're on Yoshi's back, all you can do is jump as high as possible and then float down as you're moving. But if you dismount Yoshi against a ceiling, so you instantly remount him, you enter this glitch state that allows you to fly as if you weren't on Yoshi's back, just like normal. Pretty complicated to do, actually, because typically if you want to pump your cape in order to gain height, you have to hit left, for instance, in this case. But hitting left would actually make Yoshi turn around, so you'll notice that he sticks out Yoshi's tongue in order to keep Yoshi from turning around, because Yoshi can't turn around while his tongue is stuck out. And so there's a lot of little pieces that are going on there, including things like making sure he slows down enough to be able to bounce off of the eyes of that blarg that's in the lava. That blarg that's in the lava is really valuable to him because otherwise he wouldn't be able to make it over that lava hill. And so there's just a lot of little pieces going on there all simultaneously, and failure costs basically the whole run. If you don't get the midway tape there, it means you're doing the whole level over again with no power-ups. That's like 45 sequends lost, probably.
Yeah, because this is the second half of this level. We even cut out the first half because this is the bigger trick, and the first half's not easy either. It has its own trick to it. But I love like you were saying, this game has so many small intricacies to it that you wouldn't notice just by looking at it. A lot of the game you can kind of just watch and be like, oh, it's Super Mario World, I understand what's going on here, until you get to things like some of the crazy glitches or Yoshi flying and stuff like that. As somebody who hasn't really played a lot of SMW, every time I saw runs of this game, I just thought that was a thing Yoshi could do. If you had the cape and Yoshi, I thought you could just cape pump like you normally could.
Sure.
But no, you can't. You got to actually set it up with this trick, and then all of these buttons you got to press at the same time. It's nuts.
Yeah. This skips a former version of the strat that probably is about 5 seconds slower than this. It was its own relatively challenging trick. This really ramps up to the next level. Really only the highest level players would try to integrate this into their run because there's other glitches that save more time that are a little easier to pull off. This is maybe not where you want to hang your hat if you're not at the highest level. So.
Okay, well, we're going to jump to a castle stage now. We got Lemmy's Castle here. I think you mainly wanted to talk about the first room, but we're going to kind of let most of this stage play out.
Yeah, so the first room here has a kind of an interesting manipulation. If you've ever played this game before and you just run right there, you know that Magikoopa is a real pain. It kind of gets in your way. But if you notice at the very beginning, he was spinning his cape, and that's a really subtle camera manipulation that causes Magikoopa to never get in your way in that room. And that's really the big piece. Like, this is sort of the level that this run is at. There's a lot of ways that you can do things consistently. There's a lot of ways that you can do things safely, but we're at the point where we spin our cape in order to manipulate the camera, which is kind of crazy if you think about it.
Yeah.
This room is all about layers or cycles as well, you know, just trying to make sure that you hit all the appropriate cycles. If you were to do this naturally, you would end up being about 1 or 2 cycles slower than you can do it optimally. But if you really know where you can push your advantage, you can save quite a bit actually, because each of those cycles takes about 17 seconds for the screen to fully move up and then back down. So you save quite a lot if you can press your advantage on it.
And then cap it off with pretty good boss fight.
Yeah.
Some of the bosses we will be talking about how some of the bosses are a little bit more difficult, but a lot of them, I think you've said in the past, are pretty straightforward.
Yeah. This game has really trivial boss fights. You know, the difficulty is not in the boss fights, and occasionally you'll see someone lose a run to a boss. Typically, if you do, it's like Reznor or something like that, which we'll talk about later. But the actual Koopa Kid bosses are pretty easy. The only one that really poses any significant challenges may be Wendy. So we'll see that later.
Okay, well, cool. With that, then we'll go ahead and move on. I think we're in Star World now.
Yeah, so this is a trick that you may actually be familiar with if you've ever played the game. This is something that it's kind of easy to accidentally do just as you're moving through blocks. Really famous one. It was mentioned in a strategy guide for the game when the game first came out in 1990.
Really?
And it was referred to as tornadoes. I think it's sort of one of those things where you see a glitch happens and you say, well, we're not going to fix it, so we might as well name it. But it's actually caused by a pretty interesting mechanic. The game can only keep track of 4 blocks spinning at a time. And so because of that, what happens is as soon as more than 4 blocks start spinning, the game starts forcing older spinning blocks to shut. It forces them to turn back into regular blocks. And if Mario gets stuck inside blocks, the game tries to shove him down very quickly. And so the idea here is that if you're spinning your cape like this, you're causing blocks to rapidly open and shut fast enough that you're just flying downwards down the stage. And so it's a really cool level. If you've ever seen 11 exit runs, which is the really short version of really short category for this game, then you may know this level as the level where runs are made or broken. You know, you can get some pretty crazy times on this when you optimize it. Optimal key in that hole is, I think, 292, but 291 is, I mean, 292 is just barely possible. 291 is still incredible.
Yeah, I just love rooms like this in speedruns that just look fast. Like, every now and then you just need a room or a strat or movement tech or whatever that just feels fast.
You don't need to know exactly how it happens. You're just like, wow, that was fast. I see why they do that. That makes sense.
It's a neat trick as well for people who are just learning the game, because even before you learn how to control this effectively, you can still use it to pretty good effect. You can get pretty good time on this level having no idea what to do there. You just sort of start spinning through the blocks and you just hold a direction, and sometimes it'll work. And that's great. And it's really once you hit that top level that you learn how to do it as efficiently as possible. You learn how to control that, learn how to not go zipping off in one direction or another, but go actually straight downward, which is challenging on its own.
Yeah. Well, we won't let it loop too long. We'll jump into Special World here. Special.
Yeah, this one's a short one. So this is tubular in Special World, and this is not a new strat. This is probably about 3 or 4 years old at this point. But when this strat was first discovered, that you could duplicate that block to the left, no one ever thought this was going to show up in a speedrun because it was just too difficult to actually pull off in real time. And over time, ways were found how to optimize this, how to get the block into the wall more consistently, how to get it to move the way you want it to. The way he's moving the P-switch through the wall is by scrolling the screen. The P-switch sort of rapidly oscillates back and forth as it's in the wall, and when you scroll the screen, it sort of forces it to move in one direction or another. So there's consistent ways to get it to move in the direction that you want it to, and all it takes is getting it to touch that P-balloon block that's right there, because P-balloon block happens to be that same group of blocks. All it needs to do is move one X position to the left, and it's wings. So that's how that one works.
Camera manipulation in a 2D game, not something you hear very often.
No, this game actually does that a whole lot. There's quite a few. I'd say, you know, when I first started speedrunning this game, there were probably only 1 or 2 levels where camera manipulation was really a thing. There were a few stages where you would manipulate the camera in order to keep some things from spawning on screen a little later. And at this point, I would say, you know, an optimal run of this game probably has, I don't know, 10 to 15, maybe something like 12 levels where camera manipulation is actually a strat that's employed. So I think it's pretty wild how much that has played a part in optimizing this game.
I love it, man. Well, this next one is actually the first time we're going to be talking about something that went wrong in this run. It wasn't perfect. No world record ever is, which is part of what we're doing with this segment a lot of the time, is dispelling that myth. And yeah, so what exactly is happening here?
Yeah, so if we're trying to point out places where you could maybe gain time on world record holder Louis 37, this is probably one that you could pick because it turns, I mean, this level actually isn't too challenging. But the takeoff at the beginning is a little bit nuanced and can sometimes go a little bit wrong. And he just misses his takeoff. Fortunately, he's actually really good at recovering this. He knew instantly how to keep from running into all the fuzzies that are in this level and make it to where he was trying to go, which was the Yoshi wings that are over here. But it was a little less than optimal, probably the first mistake he made, and it probably wasn't even all that big of one. I would say, you know, that's like 3 to 4 seconds he probably lost on this, and really most of that is just taking a second chance at taking off. So
right,
it's one of those mistakes where you could almost pass it off for not being a mistake, something intentional. Oh, I just need to gain more speed. For people who don't know enough about the game, and I mean, if that's one of the major mistakes of the run, that says a lot about it.
Yeah, I like how we're talking about one of the major mistakes of the run. Yeah, in this hour and 22-minute run, he made a 3 to 4 second mistake. There you go. You can save time.
Like I said, we're mostly going to be celebrating this run. There's not a whole lot.
Do everything else perfectly,
yeah.
And then just, you know, do this level right. Who can't do that?
Oh man. Well, let's go back and let's actually look at another thing that went wrong, although it might not even look like it right away.
Yeah, so we haven't even talked about the strat that he's trying to do here yet. He's trying to do a strat that we'll talk about later called boss kill. Everything he's done up to that point right there was intentional, except for the spot where he switched power-ups to the fire flower, and that's where things went wrong. And if I didn't tell you that, you probably would have no idea that anything had gone wrong. Nope. It was pretty clean. He was trying to do a strat that would have spawned in a fake boss. In this case, I think it's actually Reznor, and it would have ended the level a little bit early. It doesn't really save a ton of time on this level. I think it's something like 10 seconds. I'm not really, this one's pretty new, and I don't do this in my arsenal, so I'm not exactly sure on the timing, but it saves a little bit of time. But he was so quickly able to recover back to the basic strats of just flying through this level like you would. So I think this is really an impressive recovery, and we'll see the actual glitch happen properly later.
Yeah, and I think that is like the theme of this run, of any of the mistakes that we're going to show, is that Louis is a master of backing it up instantly. No hesitation, knows immediately what he needs to do to recover, and then just does it and makes it look flawless.
I think that speaks volumes to, you know, what Frozen was saying earlier about, you know, he really kind of got his start, or at least prioritized individual level speedruns, and I think it speaks a lot to, you know, I've never watched him sit around and practice, but I have to imagine that a lot of it is, okay, something went wrong in this level, I'm going to finish the level anyway and just see how to get to the end. Because it's clear that this is a mistake he's made before, and he just instantly was falling. It was instinct for him how to finish the level. There was no hesitation in it. He just instantly knew he had made a mistake and recovered flawlessly. So
yeah, that's not easy to do, as anybody who speedruns anything knows. But if you haven't before, then yeah, let us tell you that is not easy to do.
You spend so much time practicing the thing to go right. You don't really practice for when it goes wrong, and then when it does, you need to back it up. Simple as that.
Our next clip goes right. This is actually basically what you were talking about, trying to spawn in a boss. What exactly is happening here?
Perhaps explaining it is outside the scope of this podcast, but I will do my best to commentate as it's happening. So this is a different boss he's spawning. He's actually spawning a Koopa Kid, not a Reznor in this one. But basically what's happening is he needs to do a trick called double tongue glitch that will allow him to have a empty entry on his tongue. He wants Yoshi's tongue to exist in memory and for the game to think that he has something in his mouth, but for there to not actually be anything there. And so what he's going to do is he's going to do this trick where he grabs a power-up and sticks Yoshi's tongue out at the same time, and that causes Yoshi to stick his tongue out 2 times, which is what triggers that to happen. And once that's happened, Yoshi is now in this weird state where the game says Yoshi has something in its mouth, but if you were to ask it the question, what's in his mouth, it would say, I don't know. And so now he's going to go back to the left, and he's going to stomp on this sliding Koopa. That's important because that sliding Koopa is actually what's going to cause the thing in his mouth to become the Koopa Kid. It's an unnamed Koopa Kid, but all Koopa Kids have the property that you can kill them with either 3 stomps on their head, which isn't going to happen here because this Koopa Kid can't be jumped on, or 12 fireballs. So he shoots 12 fireballs.
And it's not even, you could tell the sprite's totally glitched out. It doesn't look like a Koopa Kid at all. It's just this weird half invisible thing, but just shooting the fireballs at it and it's still gonna die and end the level.
So someone in chat did ask a question that I think is worth addressing, and they say, how's that any different than creating Orb, the one pretty much only banned glitch in this category? And the thing is that collecting an orb in this game, putting one in your item box and using it to beat a level, first is really easy. You can do that a lot in a lot of different places, and it would mean that the whole category would devolve into, let's just grab 30 to 40 orbs and use it to beat a variety of levels. And the second part is that collecting an orb, despite being easy and frequently available, is prone to crashing the game. So when you collect an orb and you don't do it in exactly the right way, you might just crash the game right then and there. And so for a lot of different reasons, mostly for making this category interesting at all, it was deemed to be a glitch that just wasn't worth it to do. So,
but this instead, spawning, a glitch version of the boss can still be really interesting, as we're seeing here.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do this in every stage. Whereas with an orb, you can just collect it, hold on to it, and say all right, I don't like the stage. Let's just skip it.
For sure.
Well, thank you for that clarification. Now let's move on. I believe we're back in Vanilla Dome again. Vanilla Dome 1 here.
Yeah, so we're on our cleanup mission. When you beat Special World, you go back to the map and you can sort of clean up all the levels that you've missed so far. So this is our cleanup of World 3, and this is just a really interesting, fun bit of movement, I think, to watch. What he's doing here isn't necessarily hard to achieve, but it's a really interesting little bit of optimization here where he tries to spin fly at a very precise moment so that he can fly under this pipe but land on the red block and take off in order to go up here. So he doesn't have to deal with jumping on the stairs, he doesn't have to spawn the vine, he doesn't have to climb the vine, he doesn't have to do all these steps, he can just spin to the top. And it's a trick that you'll see in a lot of people's runs, but it's relatively precise and it's fun to watch, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this was always a stage that stuck into my head watching runs, because something like that, you just see it and you're just like, I don't think that most people can do that. I don't think you normally can just jump and fly, just spin fly all the way to the top there while navigating under that pipe.
Yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning that trick right there has probably one of the better trick names in this game. It's called Red Block Thing.
Okay.
Oh, Red Block Thing, yeah.
I've never seen a more accurate name.
Yeah. Do you do the Red Block Thing? Yeah. Yeah, I do red block thing.
Everyone in the community will know what you're talking about if you ask about red block thing. Hey, can you teach me how to do red block thing? They'll know what level you mean.
Well,
Love it.
what level is this one? Because I don't know. I don't even know the name of this next one here. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, so this is Vanilla Secret 1. This is the second route on Vanilla Dome. And this is another one. You said you love climb levels. Let me show you a really good climb level. Doing this efficiently, you know, the strats have evolved so much in this stage. Doing this level efficiently, even with older, less optimal strats, is still pretty hard. It's kind of tough to maintain your spin fly as you're going, to thread the needle as you're going through those Koopas. But what he does here is just, I think, on another level. This is the current meta as it stands, and what makes this more optimal are two main things. So the obvious thing is that he picks up a Koopa shell early on in the stage and throws it at those Koopas so he can get through early. He doesn't have to wait for an opening, he just goes for it. And the other thing is that his choice of platforms to jump off of are very specifically chosen so that max height jumps always land directly on the next platform. There are some much more consistent, much safer strats that are only like 2 seconds slower, but you don't always land directly on the next platform. You have to sort of fall back down onto it. But you'll notice that his max height jumps pretty much always land directly on the next platform, which is just, you know, it's that little bit of optimization that makes the difference between someone who has a 122.12 and a 122.40, you know?
And that's what we were talking about with the climbs too, is a lot of it is generally not getting a max height jump because you're going to overshoot your platform and trying to minimize the amount of time that you're falling down to the platform so that you can start a new jump. Well, if you can make that height work out where you can just do a max height jump and land right on the platform, then it makes it's a win-win basically. Like you've made the movement work out better in your favor and minimize the downtime of falling at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember I used to watch a lot of 96 runs back in the day, and by back in the day I mean like probably like 2014, 13.
In the golden era.
Yeah, I guess.
When he ran.
I'm old. But you know, I used to love watching this stage because it's always one of my favorite stages. And now looking at this run right now, looking at the movement, it kind of puts like those like stages, like, you know, back in those days, like it puts those to shame. Like they look like pedestrian compared to this. It's honestly incredible to see like how optimized the stages have become. I mean, this looks incredibly different.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's understated how difficult each one of these movements is. Even explaining it, stepping it out, I mean, it's incredible.
Sure.
Well, we'll move to another castle here. This time, Ludwig's castle. Ludwig. I don't know.
This castle isn't, strictly speaking, all that challenging. There's a lot of optimization that goes into it, and playing at the highest level, as with anything, is challenging. But what I love about this castle is I think this castle is the perfect showcase of everything the cape is capable of doing. So right out the get-go, the very first room, there's a dive bomb to kill enemies. There's a trick that we refer to as cape canceling, which is where you intentionally run into an item or run into an enemy while you're in a certain state, so that rather than take damage, you just turn invulnerable for a few seconds. And then as you go into the next level, there's spin flying, where he's very carefully metering his height so that he can go under obstacles. And then finally, there's this reflight trick where he takes off, falls into the ground, and jumps again, and is able to continue flying for some reason. And the reason he's able to continue flying is because the way flying works in this game is that when you take off, there's this timer that starts counting down. If you ever touch the ground while that timer's active, if you jump again, you can start flying immediately. So you see he jumps into this block right here, hits the ground, and then jumps again and is immediately flying again. Which is, in a sense, I guess you could think of it as a glitch, but it's really sort of an abuse of a cool mechanic. And it allows him to maintain his flight as he goes under all of those potaboos. The lava bubbles that are jumping out of the lava.
And if you want to hear our thoughts about how that kind of thing differs from being a glitch, or, you know, whether it's a mechanic or a glitch or whatever, look at the last episode of the sprint on YouTube, because we talked about that pretty in detail about why it's hard to define glitchless for reasons like that kind of mechanic.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll talk a little more later about that cape canceling trick where he damage boosts through an obstacle, because it'll come up more in another level.
Yeah, that is a cool thing, and I definitely want to hear a bit more about it. For now, though, Forest of Illusion is going to be the next one. here. Wings in particular, I think, are the interesting part of this clip, right?
Yeah, so I'm specifically mentioning this level because this is a trick he's going to do in this level that saves just the smallest amount of time possible. It's something like 4 seconds when done optimally. He's going to get wings right at the end of this level because there's a P-balloon box, which, as we've already learned, a P-balloon box, if you can duplicate it to the left, becomes Yoshi wings. Unfortunately, he's so close to the end of the level here that it really saves such a small amount of time, and if he messes this up, he pretty much won't even break even. Like, if he messes this up, he's going to lose enough time that he's not going to just break even by messing this up. And so it's kind of, this is the highest level of Super Mario World play. He says, I want to save 4 seconds, and so he saves 4 seconds. But so he's doing a very specific trick here. One thing that I'll mention is that when he spits the Koopa shell out of his mouth, he instantly spins it and grabs it in midair. This actually puts it in a state where it has sort of motion information stored in the shell, so that when he uses it to duplicate the block, it actually duplicates it in a direction. And so there's a little bit of that going on. Basically, if you grab a shell while it's in midair, while it's moving horizontally, when you throw it for 1 frame, it keeps that sort of movement going. And so he uses that to duplicate the block to the left. That's how he does that over a precarious pit.
And I want to bring something up because, careful listeners might have noticed that sometimes we're saying, 2 seconds is a lot of time to save, and other times 4 seconds, it's the smallest amount of time to save. And the difference there is usually what is the risk factor involved, or what is the level of practice you need to get that time save, right? Like, if you can save 2 seconds somewhere without a ton of investment, that's pretty huge. Or if it's 2 seconds in a level that has been ground down like crazy to where you're saving that 2 seconds over almost everybody else, that's also a lot of time to save. But when it's a strat that has a huge potential for failure, or a chance to die or something like that, 4 seconds becomes I don't know if that's worth it anymore, right? Do I want to potentially kill my entire run on this and lose the 48 minutes I've invested at this point into this run? Do I want to just try to go for this time save that it has some frame perfect tricks in it and stuff like that, and I'm probably going to fail and end up losing time overall just for the potential to save 4 seconds? That's where that difference comes in, of why sometimes 2 seconds could be a huge amount of time save and 4 seconds could be a small amount of time save.
Yeah, jokes about how small this time save is. It's worth mentioning that, the amount of practice that he's certainly put into a trick like that, he's not worried about losing that time. Right. And if he can get it on a second try, he does basically break even. And so for him, it's not a huge risk factor, and at this point, it's viewed as a necessity to him, most likely, just to be able to play at this level. But that being said, it's kind of funny that this trick is happening. I mean, if the screen were to scroll just another screen to the right, you would see the end of the level. The time he's saving is purely just that when you hit the goal tape at the end, it plays a 10-second fanfare. He's saving the 10-second fanfare. That's it.
Hey man, but you get to move during it, and thus it feels faster.
Exactly.
And is.
Yeah, and is in this case. Okay.
This is essentially swag with an added mini time save.
Right.
Love it.
So this is probably the biggest instance of a Yoshi clip in this run. It saves the maximum amount of time. This is a very long, annoying level. Nobody loves this level, not even its own mother. And going out of bounds right at the very beginning saves so much time, because you can grab this block that is slightly inbounds, and that allows you to swim faster. And you have to do this level 2 times because it has a key exit and a normal exit. So that means no matter what, no matter how much time you're going to save, you're going to have to save it twice. But what's really frustrating about this is, as I mentioned earlier, Yoshi clips are effectively, to some extent, random. I'd prefer to use the word luck, because it's not RNG that's happening here. It's sort of a frame-based counter. but it's not something that a human can really have a lot of control over. He has 100% of the control of whether or not he gets into the wall. But once he gets into the wall and he wants to get fully out of bounds, at that point it's up to the game. And so he does a very small manipulation in this level, again, dismounting Yoshi while he's against the ceiling, that sets up Yoshi's subpixel value so that at least for the very next attempt he makes, he will have a 75% chance of success. Once he fails it, if he fails it that time, and he doesn't land on Yoshi immediately, after that, it's up in the air. It's something like, on average, 50 to 60% chance of failure. So,
and what you were saying there with, like, you don't like to call it RNG. I've always liked the term effective randomness, or like practical randomness, practical RNG, effective RNG, where, yeah, there's technically ways that you can make it 100% consistent, but to a human playing the video game, like, it might as well be completely random. And like you're saying, there's at least setups so you get certain percentages, but every time you miss it, you're losing quite a bit of time.
Yeah, so it's based on what frame you actually dismount Yoshi on, and Sockfolder ages ago actually looked into trying to find a setup to try to improve it, and basically came back with no. But like in a level like this, if you look in the background, you have those little bits of seaweed that are moving in the background. Those animations are on a 4-frame timer. So if you're just, you know, a robot, you can pick the right frame by looking at that animation in the background. But I think at this point, as far as I know, it's been deemed pretty much not manipulatable beyond just setting up Yoshi's subpixel.
Right. And praying. Like, just jumping into the wall and hoping. Yeah,
so actually, this route isn't set in stone. The order you do the levels, you can change things up a little bit. In fact, famously, Akisto, who was formerly the world record holder in this game, he actually does a different route for this game. His route prioritizes getting to this level as fast as possible, because I think it's really frustrating for speedrunners when you can play at your best and sometimes time loss is just out of your hands. Mm-hmm. So I think for him, it was about minimizing the number of times that would actually come up. I'm not sure if that was actually useful for him, because Akisto also had the distinction of being a runner who preferred to do no reset runs almost entirely. And so the order of levels didn't matter. He was going to finish it out usually, even if it was terrible on this level. But his route prioritized that for that reason. And that was actually a challenge we had to overcome when a 96 exit 4-way race happened with him at a GDQ, because it was very difficult to commentate where he was in the race, because he insisted on doing his route. It was what he was comfortable with, and it actually had subtle changes to how he performed each stage. So he couldn't just agree to do everyone else's route. And so it made a little bit of a challenge commentating his race.
Oh, I know all about that. And also, like, as somebody who's run RPGs, that's like the motto of RPGs, when you can play perfectly and then you lose time out of your control. Like, that's just, yeah, that's not a great feeling. Oh man. Yeah. Okay, well, out of swimming.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Swimming levels are done with the worst level.
So this level right here is another instance of being in really close, tight quarters with things that are blocking your path. And so this is another place where we employ this trick that we refer to as cape canceling. So the game, if you are just taking off, so you notice when you jump off the ground and Mario's just flying upwards, during that time, Mario's vulnerable. If you run into something, you will take damage. But once you enter a proper flying state, you know, Mario has hit his peak and he has started, you know, cape pumping. At that point, running into something only turns Mario invulnerable and forces him into a spinning state. He can't fly anymore. And that actually gets used in speedruns quite a lot, because if you jump into a ceiling, you instantly go into this flying state. At that moment, you go into a flying state. And so very often you'll see runners jump into the ceiling right in front of an enemy, so that when they run into the enemy, they're invulnerable to it. And this is a very common technique that's used in a lot of Super Mario World in a lot of different places, be it dive bombing into an enemy in order to cape cancel through it, jumping into a ceiling to cape cancel through it, running into something so that you can use your invulnerability frames to get through yet another thing. It's used a lot throughout the run in order to gain very temporary invulnerability in order to overcome obstacles that would otherwise gate you for an amount of time. These ghosts aren't going to move until you turn away from them and wait for them to slowly float out of the way. So there's just no time for that.
It's kind of like you were saying how the cape is like there's the cape can be OP when you know about all of the intricate mechanics to the cape. It's not, you don't get all this for free. You got to know how to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a big preference in the community for a subset of the community to do no cape speedruns of this game. No cape speedruns are equally, if not more, fascinating than the cape speedruns. But you know, you lose that little bit, and you have to find other ways to overcome those problems. And it's really fascinating watching new strats emerge for overcoming all of these obstacles when you don't have the cape to just allow you to invulnerability frames through things.
Now, one thing I wanted to point out is we've kind of seen maybe a little bit of it, but this is probably like the first major instance where like the runner went past the door, and you know that may seem very innocuous or be like, you know what, yeah, whatever. It's just the door. Like, how hard could doors be? Why did he like mess that up? Doors are probably the most impossible thing in this game, aren't they?
Yeah. So doors, if you're running at full speed, you only have a 3-frame window to open the door. A lot of time, like even at my skill level, sometimes right before I get to a door, I'll let go of the direction that I'm holding because it widens it to like a 5-frame window or something like that. You know, at the top level, people are running through the doors, and it really puts into perspective some of these tricks that you see runners do. Because you'll see, you know, later in the run, a trick like clipping through the floor in a level, and you know, someone will say, "Oh, that's so hard. That's a 2-frame trick." And then you really think about it, and you're like, "Well, that's only 1 frame harder than going through every door in the game." I mean, the only doors that are free are boss doors, and that's just because they're 2 tiles wide. So.
Oh man, open the door tech, dude. Like that's
hardest boss is the door boss.
Oh geez.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got the forest fort, I believe, here that we're gonna be checking out now, and our pal Reznor, we're gonna get to talk about too.
Yeah, we skipped past the auto-scroller, so the first room of this level is an auto-scroller. But this is another one of those rooms that really shows off a lot of really interesting tech. So before I talk about that, this is the Reznor fight right here. Reznor is very aggressive. Reznor shoots fireballs randomly however he chooses to. And so this fight happens very quickly. You try to slide under the first one, jump over the second one, hit the third one, and then sort of work your way back to clean up the mess. But Reznor can really mess with you. You know, you'll see that a lot of times Louis will jump as soon as he enters the room to try to get Reznor to target him a little too high. And then even in addition to that, after you kill 2 of the Reznors, the ground starts breaking. And there's this little moment where he's running off of one platform and heading toward that ground that is breaking underneath him. And he sort of floats over this lava gap. And it can be a little, I mean, occasionally you'll see a runner fall in. It's perhaps the most embarrassing way to die, but you'll sometimes see a runner fall into that little lava gap. It's, it is a fight that I think you can learn it in a moment, and it takes a long time to master. Because playing it this aggressively right here takes a lot of, okay, I've seen Reznor do this kind of thing before. I know how to anticipate this a little bit. And the other subtle thing that Super Mario World runners don't want you to know is that the fireballs are pretty big, but in reality, they're actually the same size as Mario's fireballs, their actual hitbox. So they're very, very tiny. So you can touch the vast majority of that fireball before you take damage. And that's why usually you won't see a runner flinch even when a Reznor shoots a fireball, is because it takes quite a lot to actually run into one.
That's great. I love the like clickbait titles. Like the one secret Super Mario runners don't want you to know.
Yeah, so the beginning of the stage, he spins his cape in order to manipulate the camera so that those Potaboos don't spawn as early, and so they don't jump out of the lava and hit him. And then from here on, he just sort of employs a lot of different cape techniques. So he spin flies at the beginning, and his flight trigger is still active, so when he runs off of a platform, he's instantly flying right away. And then he starts spin flying through the rest of the level, sort of over obstacles and under low-hanging walls, just trying to you know, avoid all these things that would otherwise slow him down. So it's a really neat level that again shows off the power of the cape. It's maybe a little bit OP, I'll grant you, but mastering the technique, I think, is the fun of running this game. Is that you know that you're dealing with an overpowered tool, but it's like if I handed you a shotgun, like you still kind of need to learn how to point
how
it,
to use it,
right?
Right? Yeah.
Right? Like I'm giving you the tool, you got to figure out how to use it. So
yeah.
And there's all new levels of mastery with every single mechanic in this game. I mean, there are entire ROM hacks dedicated to everything that we've talked about tonight. Full games that are just about your cape mechanics, to full games that are about cape canceling, all kinds of things. So it's really interesting to see how much you can improve in this game.
People love their Super Mario World tech. They really do.
They do, man.
It is a passion project for a lot of people. So
the sheer number of even outside of ROM hacks, when you look at like Super Mario Maker, like that's the number of Super Mario World levels in that game is huge. It's crazy. Cool. Obviously, the mechanics are slightly different, but probably pretty drastically different at the high level. But anyways, I'll stop talking about things I don't know about and continue on to the next clip about something that I don't really know about. So what's happening here?
Yeah, so we're jumping pretty far ahead here. This is actually Chocolate Fort, and this is in the top few most technical stages in the game. Being able to get through all of this very quickly with the fireballs and the pencils that are blocking your path, all of these obstacles together make an incredibly challenging stage to speedrun. And I would argue that this is probably the second most challenging stage to really play at the most optimal level. There's a lot going on here that takes a long time to master. And it ends, as with all the other forts, with a Reznor. The Super Mario World community has their sort of superstitions. People, at least historically, used to say, oh, the chocolate fort Reznor is really aggressive, but the forest fortress Reznor is really reserved. All of that's fake because they're the exact same Reznor. But,
of course.
So this level starts off with scrolling the screen to the left to get some things to spawn a little later, and then from there it's a lot of mastery of the cape in order to avoid things that would otherwise get in the way if you weren't moving at full speed. And you actually saw in that first room another instance of a very subtle small mistake that was made, a place that if you are going to try to take this record, you'll have to figure out how to save those 3 seconds that were lost. As someone who has done these strats in this level, which are incredibly challenging, I'll tell you that it is impossible to recover. If you make a mistake, you will not recover it. Louis made a mistake and recovered it, which makes me think that there is something not natural about him. Here, he bounces accidentally off of a random fireball that just happened to be in the way and missed a cycle on that pencil. It got in his way after he wasn't able to get through the gap fast enough, and that should have thrown him off entirely. But as we said before, you know, Louis has put in the time. Almost certainly he has made that mistake at one point or another and has figured out how to recover it quickly. Just really, really impressive play. This is a very technical stage. As with a lot of speedruns, when it goes right, you just don't even know what you're looking at. And I think this is no exception. I don't think that this looks all that hard, but as someone who's done it, I'll tell you it's impossible.
Man, and we'll see too, like when we move on to some later clips, like you'll see the time loss in his splits from just simple mistakes like that, small things. It's crazy how they can add up, but to be able to back them up like you're saying, it keeps the run alive and makes it the one we're talking about today instead of, you know, just an attempt that went wrong.
This is what separates it. You know, I've done plenty of great runs, and I'll make a mistake, and it all just caves from there.
Right.
But that's not the case for Louis. You know, he keeps his composure and puts it together, and I think it's really great.
Well, I think we've got an important stage for you, your favorite stage up next.
This is my favorite stage. It is not a hard stage. You could watch this run right here and probably learn to execute pretty much everything you're seeing here. But I love this stage because it should be really challenging. There's a lot of slopes, there's a lot of obstacles in here, and the level just doesn't feel conducive to speedrunning. And yet, if you just spin fly your heart out, you stick to the ceiling quite a lot, and you manage to avoid a lot of those obstacles. You can make it over extremely long gaps. And Louis actually here did a relatively small optimization, you know, the difference between 1 second on the in-game timer here, where at the very end of the stage, basically from this point on, he goes the top route rather than the bottom route, which isn't strictly harder, but it can be very difficult to get that dive bomb to get the Monty Mole out of your way. And that's the difference between him getting a 272 on the clock and someone like me getting a 271 or maybe slower.
I mean, yeah, that one, like you said, not a whole lot to say about it, but it's just cool to look at.
Yeah, I just think it's a neat stage.
It's another one of those clean movement stages.
Yeah.
Self-explanatory.
Always good to
Nice.
have some sexy stages in there. Okay. Windy's Castle is up next, and actually a few mistakes again.
Yeah, so this one has, I think it's hard to say without talking to Louis specifically about it, but this right here, what he does right there, sliding on the ground and missing what a lot of runners would have done, which is cape canceling through the saw blade and going under the first skewer, which actually saves you a whole cycle on this section right here. I would argue that it's more likely that what happened there was him actually playing it pretty conservatively. If you think that your flight speed isn't fast enough, your flight speed varies between some sub-pixel values, anywhere from 47 sub-pixels per frame to 51 sub-pixels per frame. If your flight is too slow, if you get one of the slower flight speeds, you will die doing that. And I think it's very likely that Louis identified that his flight speed was suspect and just decided not to risk it. Not to risk a great quality run. You know, he's 18 seconds ahead coming out of Roy. Why risk it? He actually plays both the first room and the second room relatively consistently, or conservatively. And I think that, whereas someone might look at this run and say, well, you lost a few seconds in this room and you lost a few seconds in this room. I think really this stage being as brutal as it sometimes can be, I think more it's worth saying, he saved a good run and was able to continue with it. So,
yeah, again, I mean, the number of times that we've just said Louis can make the call to do a backup instantly or do just a slightly different strat.
Yeah, the only thing even close to a mistake he made in the second room is that he could have not taken off right here and actually dive bombed. He could have continued on and the ceiling would have been a little lower. It makes it harder to fly through this room when the ceiling is sort of low and oppressive in that way. But he dive bombed to allow time for the ceiling to go higher to give him a cleaner movement through that room. And so realistically, maybe lost like a second or two, but he made the stage really easy, a stage that otherwise has killed a great many good runs. So
definitely, yeah, don't want to have that happen when you're on really good pace, even though we can see that pace dwindle a little bit at the end there on the splits. But again, we talked about it, like there were some mistakes in this segment overall, but salvaged from larger mistakes that might have ended the run.
Absolutely.
Okay, then on to the next one. We're getting near the end here, not too much left.
Yeah, we're hitting the end game.
We got some cool minor optimizations though.
Yeah, this is a really cool stage because, if you're just learning to speedrun this game, this stage isn't terribly difficult, but it's a really satisfying level to learn. You're sort of consistently landing on these platforms and taking off again while you're on Yoshi's back, because you're going to need Yoshi in another level later. So you just have to sort of deal with having Yoshi there. He actually does a really small optimization that saves very little time, but it's really great to see these sort of individual level strats working their way into speedruns. So what he's doing that's really unique is rather than consistently taking off and just gliding through the level, he actually is consistently landing on these platforms and running on them, because as they start to move forward, they make him run forward a little faster. And it probably only amounts to maybe saving a handful of frames per platform, but it adds up after he does, 8 of them in the level, adds up to maybe saving up to a second, perhaps, maybe only half a second. But this is sort of the level of play that Louis is going for. He's okay with playing a little conservatively on the levels that are really technical and can sometimes cost you a whole run. But, in a level like this, he's going to go for what he knows he's capable of doing. And here he's doing these minor optimizations, trying to push these platforms forward as much as possible.
And again, like you're saying, like it's not even... It's one of those things where it's probably mostly just about changing, not doing the easiest thing, right? And changing the way that you do the level, and you just got to change it to a level that you put some more practice into or something, rather than it necessarily being, risky strat that's going to get you killed or something like that. It's where, if you can squeeze out the time, might as well squeeze out that time.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, then we can jump to the next one, which is in the castle again, Larry's castle this time.
Yeah, so this room right here is specifically clipped because I would argue that this is the make it or break it room. This is probably the most technical room in the whole speedrun. It's incredibly, I think it's just amazing watching him get through here as efficiently as he is with Magic Koopa, who Magic Koopa is one of the few true elements of randomness in this game. Magic Koopa randomly picks a spot on screen to spawn, and that could be right in front of you, it could be behind you, it could be somewhere completely out of the way, but Magic Koopa picks a random spot. But there's a lot going on here. He scrolls the screen to the left to get these skewers to spawn later. He's spin flying in order to clear these blocks out of his way so he can keep moving. He scrolls the screen to the right to get Magic Koopa, or to get the spawns for the pencils in a way that he'll be able to get under them. And all the while, he's trying to sort of balance how much of the screen can he see in front of him and how much is he allowing Magic Koopa room to spawn in front of him. And this room is really difficult to do. Even if Magic Koopa weren't in this room, even if the skewers weren't in this room getting in your way, this room would already be difficult just to spin fly through. Being able to control your spin fly in such a way that you're sort of opening up a path through these block walls, that you're making it over these gaps with the potaboos and things like that, it would already be incredibly challenging. But to have these perfect timings for crouching under the pencils, having Magic Koopa spawning all around you, it just adds up to a really, really challenging level, and Louis handles it incredibly. So.
With the camera control on top of it, man.
I like to look at this stage in like 3 ways. If you're like casually playing through it, super difficult. If you're casually speedrunning through it, I say casually, but like if you're speedrunning through this, wow, this is incredible. If you're doing what Louis is doing, what in the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here that, you know, there's lots of great runners in our community. Plenty of people are able to play at this level in an IL, but you know, this is again another instance Louis pulling off this really impressive stage at the very end of an hour and 20-minute run. I mean, you know, your nerves are high, you're just trying to execute, and he's playing at this level. It's really, you know, these sorts of levels, these really technical ones that involve, you know, I have to pay attention to my movement left and right. I have to pay attention to my height when I'm spin flying. I have to pay attention to the camera movement and when I actually want to scroll. I have to pay attention to when I'm ducking so that I don't lose too much speed, but I'm still able to go into the skewers. You're balancing so many pieces simultaneously. Being able to play through that room at that speed is incredible. It really, I don't use that word lightly. It's incredible.
And it's incredible to watch. Again, like the biggest thing to me, just that pops out as someone who is less familiar with the run of it, are those ducks underneath the skewers or the pencils.
Yeah,
like those. He's ducking for such a short amount of time. It's just barely, just enough to get under them.
And you can see it. It's almost like an Indiana Jones moment where he loses his hat as he's going underneath the skewer. I mean, it's visually, this entire stage is visually impressive. Again, clean movement, and it's just a culmination of so many great techniques executed so well.
Absolutely.
Well, you want to talk about good execution? We're going to talk about yet again another spot where Louis just magically made a backup happen out of nowhere.
Okay,
so up with the sandbar here.
So this trick's pretty nuts. It's a 2-frame window to crouch and hit the spin jump button right as you're going under this ceiling to clip out of bounds. But he does a pretty safe version of it so that if he messes it up, which he did, he doesn't die for it. But what's really crazy here is rather than just accepting the time loss and saying he's going to allow himself to lose a full cycle, he uses a very difficult strat, which is where he crouches and you have a 1-frame window to uncrouch so that you can go through that ceiling. And he pause buffers it to make it a little bit easier, but it's not even truly pause buffering like you get in some games. Because in Super Mario World, when you pause, the game locks you into not being able to unpause again for a few seconds. So it's not like you can just mash it really fast like you do for some games to like get it perfect. In this case, he's just pausing the game to see what frame he's on, and then he has to know based on that, do I let go of pause immediately? Do I wait 1 frame? Do I wait 2 frames? He's using that to calibrate in real time. Yes, it's a little bit slower because the pause obviously costs him like a second here, but I mean, he basically did a backup that saved him all the time he would have lost. This platform moving up and down is like 12 to 17. It's like 12 to 20 seconds. It's something like that. I think it's 17 seconds per cycle. So if he had missed that, if he had just said, oh, well, I missed the trick, I'm just going to let it go, that's pretty much enough time that he's not going to get a personal best. He's not going to get the world record. It will be out of his hands at that point. So he goes for the Hail Mary.
Right.
Attempts this impossible trick. So
I just want to give like a little context to this. Like when we were watching this, we were kind of doing a run through, as we do like before each show to kind of make sure we're on the same page. I saw this clip and I just like visibly, like I just audibly yelled because like this moment is just that incredible. And I would have done the same thing if I was like watching this like run live in person, because like this is like I don't think words could do justice to how crazy of a thing that was, to go for that in the moment, knowing you had to get it. Like, and if you don't get the frame perfect trick, you're dead. Like,
you want to talk about clutch?
Let me that's where he actually messes it up, because I'm seeing some people maybe aren't noticing where it is, and it's easy to not notice it with someone like Louis. But what he's doing right here is the main trick that he wants to do is he wants to crouch and hit the spin jump right here. But he does it in a safe way so that when he mistimed the spin jump button, he didn't die for it. He was able to just save himself. So he had sort of a backup already in mind, and this was his backup, this crazy strat right here that he pulls off. It's hard to understand what's going on. It would be so much more obvious to see him fail if he didn't go for a slightly more conservative version of it, because if he hadn't, he would be dead. He would have just died there. But he sort of knows what his options are, and he goes for a conservative version of the early strat so that he can save it with a backup if it messes up.
And again, just to point it out super explicitly, it's the point where he's sliding, just like barely, making it past this ledge. It's going to be coming up right here. Right there is where he wanted to get the clip, and unfortunately it didn't happen.
Yeah, he would have gone out of bounds. He would have been walking through the yellow part of the sandbar. I think it's a really impressive strat to watch if you see it done properly, like the actual strat happen. But for someone who's maybe only casually familiar with the speedrun, you've watched a little bit of it, his backup, I think, is even more impressive to watch. So
absolutely.
I've only ever seen, as a casual viewer of SMW, I've only ever seen the trick done successfully or just failed, period. I had never really seen this before the run.
This is not something that I've seen in a lot of people's runs. This is, I have to imagine, more of a Louis innovation, but also not a glitch that people didn't know about, just something that maybe people weren't as willing to do.
Well, then we're just gonna go to our second to last clip here. We're almost at the end. We get another fight with Resnar here.
Yeah, so this is another pretty technical stage, a really challenging one. So his movement at the beginning was to get those skewers to spawn later so he could fly underneath all of them. And from here on out, basically his goal is to maintain flight all the way through this. So he's going to try to preserve his flight while he's sort of waiting in this in the jail in between the skewers. And this is the part of the stage right here where they start going really fast. And getting that first cycle skip right there is impressive enough, but he actually maintains flight for the whole time just so he can fly right at the end of the room. A really minor optimization, but one that allows him to save, like a second, right at the very end of that room, at the risk of perhaps something going horribly wrong. This is one of those stages that there's not really a lot to say. There's some camera manipulation at the beginning that's helping him. He's guaranteed success if he gets the right flight speed. He's spinning through enemies. He's trying to maintain his flight. But this is just another example of, when you see movement in this game go right, it just looks so smooth. I think that's where this game really shines, is that it's impressive to watch and attainable to learn. This is probably one of the, I would argue, easier speedruns to learn at the introductory and intermediate levels.
Yeah. And what else could we end with but the Bowser fight? And this one, we're just going to let this, the Bowser clip play all the way through to the credits at the end, and let you see it. But why don't you give us a little bit of talk? I mean, the Bowser fight is, like you said, the bosses in this game are a lot more trivial. There is still some cool stuff going on in this one, though,
this fight's not easy, but it's scripted. Once you learn how to do it, you can do it. The main things you're going to notice is that he's going to try to save a Mecha Koopa in between phases, because usually having a Mecha Koopa for the next phase will save a little bit of time. And the other really small optimization that may not matter to you, or you may not notice as well, is that he's really trying to time it so that when he takes off, he will actually come back down at the perfect timing so that he lands on that Mecha Koopa on the first frame it appears out of Bowser's clown car. And, it's subtle, it's small, But this fight, when it goes on script, goes basically the same amount of time. The only time you can really save is getting those Mecha Koopa hits really efficiently, and Louis goes for them.
Man, and going for something on the first frame like that, where you're dropping or throwing, a projectile, stuff like that, that's always so risky, because if you're even one frame too early, boss is not there, still invulnerable or what have you, and you lost way more time, most likely, than just if you delayed an extra 1 or 2 frames. And yet going for it, knowing what that timing is, super good.
For sure.
Well, I think that was Super Mario World, everybody. Like, that was super cool. Like we said, not a whole lot of mistakes in this one at all to go over, really. It's just a lot of really awesome movement to talk about. Auth, I want to thank you again for breaking everything down for us, because this, like we talked about a couple times, you can watch this run and it's impressive passively, but there's a lot going on under the hood that you just would never know without somebody diving into it. I mean, I had no idea that the Cape had that much, intricacies to its movement and its mechanics.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, Louis incredible. This run right here, with the few mistakes that he made, was very clearly 121 pace, which I don't say to suggest that it's not a good run. I say that I don't think anyone else has had a run that I could say is 121 pace.
Right.
If he had those few mistakes, he would have what would at this time probably be considered to be a more or less unattainable time. But if you really look at his mistakes that he made throughout the run, I mean, there's like 12 seconds worth of mistakes in here. This could have been a 121 if he had just cleaned up a few of those things. And I think that really more speaks volumes to Louis' immense skill in this game. There's more people coming back to it now. I think Green Death Flavor is sort of back to running it. He was the former world record holder when it was around a 122.40. So hopefully this time is going to come down even more. Get Louis off of his butt. He's been sitting on this 122.12 for 8 months now. So hopefully we're going to see this time keep coming down. Before the 122 happened, 122 was a meme. It was never going to happen. And 121, it looks attainable right now. It looks really possible. And I'm stoked for that new era, the 122 era of Super Mario World.
And it's, once it just comes down a little bit more, suddenly you have all these people knocking on the door 121, and you just get those tiny optimizations coming out.
Yeah, Louis got some competition right now. Runners have brought it down. I think there's a Japanese runner who has a 122.18 right now. That's his closest competition. But Louis had a pretty wide gap for a really long time. So I think it's time for Louis to bring the time down. I'm excited for him to improve it. I'm excited for other people to improve it. I'm excited for the new era of Super Mario World.
Yeah. And also, if you want to get into Super Mario World, honestly, I don't know if there's an easier game to get into with all the resources out there. We talked about the practice tools. But we haven't talked about the community, really. I learned 11 Exit, one of the other categories of this game, on stream, and I think I had at least 15 to 20 runners come in. People who I didn't know even were coming in and trying to help out with trying to learn the run. And I mean, it's absolutely incredible what this community will do to help out anybody. It's not just all the top runners. They'll help out everybody.
Yeah,
really cool.
I was gonna say this game's had an amazing wiki for 6 years. I learned it off of the old wiki, and the whole community basically rewrote the whole wiki over the last maybe 2 years, and now it's perhaps one of the single greatest single game speedrunning resources I've ever seen. It's broken down by stage, and every stage has 10 videos for 10 different ways you can do it.
Awesome.
And it'll tell you this is the beginner strategy. We recommend that you start with this one, or this is the top level strategy executed perfectly. Here's how to do it.
I know very little about it. I'm still going to tell you, here's the beginner strat to get you into speedrunning, period, or into speedrunning SMW. Go into that one stage and do the zips through the rotating blocks, through the moving blocks, because apparently that's the one that you can do that was in a strategy guide when the game came out. So do that. Well, Unless Darkman or Frozen has anything else, I was just gonna say thank you again, Auth. Everybody, please follow both Louis, of course, who LUI_ on Twitch, and authorblues on Twitch as well, because and then go to the SMW page and follow everybody that we talked about. Dots are cool, Dode, and tons of other people, because yeah, this game's awesome and it's super fun to watch. But we are going to go to a little break here. Don't go anywhere. We still got a little bit more left in the show here. Just kind of talking about some speedrunning stuff that's been going on in our lives. We are going to say goodbye to Auth. Bye, Auth. And we will see you all in just a few minutes.
Bye, all.
All right. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us here. What a great segment. Like, can we just say that again? Like, that was...
Oh, yeah.
SMW is an awesome run, and I'm really glad that Auth was able to break it down for us, because that was super cool. Got to learn a lot.
It's always kind of incredible whenever the guest does enough analysis where we're just like, that's really clean. I perfect. Great job.
Nothing.
Nothing that we need to add to that.
That was good. Well, at this point, for those of you who are maybe new to the show or just showed up during that segment and stuff, this is kind of our wind down portion where we like to just be a little bit more candid, talk about stuff that's been going on for us. We call this checkpoint right now. We're gonna check in with the hosts, and I'm actually gonna throw it to Darkman first. What you been doing since the last show?
Yeah, so I came back from Calathon. That was great and all, but in the midst of Calathon, like a little bit before and now a little bit after, there's been a great like reinvigoration, I guess, if you will, of the Mega Man 11 speedrunning scene.
Oh, yeah.
Because like we had a lot of competition back when the game first came out, and like the game got pushed down a lot. But ever since then, things have gotten like things kind of calmed down a little bit. But then like over the last few weeks, it's been just fantastic. Fast at CC and Chelney, two Western speedrunners, have been really taking the game down. The current world record is 33 minutes and 30 seconds by Peony, which is a Chinese runner. But Fast is right on his heels at 33:37, and Chelney is right behind him at 33:49. Both of them have been streaming nearly every day, just trying to like get a new PB, especially with the games list coming out. So it's been really exciting kind of watching the two kind of go back and forth. Just watch Chelney stream, then he goes off. It's look, Fast is streaming now.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yep.
So like just like it just reminds me of like the old days. The old days. I say this game from like 7 months ago, but like back when like this game first came out, it would just be like everybody streaming, like people trading world records back and forth. It just kind of seems like I'm getting that feel again. It's been really fun kind of watching them.
Yeah, even I've been getting into the runs a little bit, and I don't really watch Mega Man all that much, but just watching them trade back, just stream back and forth has been it's super entertaining.
As someone who has been on a very bad sleep schedule lately, Fast streams have been great because they're always late at night and they're super chill. Fast is an awesome dude. Mega Man 11, cool run. So, I guess I'll jump in next on mine. I've been playing Sekiro, however it's pronounced. I can't pronounce it. But I've been playing that. I'm not going to go into any spoilers. Don't worry, anybody. But that game is awesome. So far it's been great. And to tie it back to speedrunning, the thing I'm excited for is that I think speedruns of like Dark Souls games, Dark Souls Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, like all those games are really awesome. Like they're really cool and interesting in their own right, but they don't have a lot of movement tech.
Right.
A lot of movement to them just in general. And I'm somebody who loves movement tech in speedruns. Like that is, I've picked up and learned run games before because of like one piece of movement tech. And they like, sometimes they've got like, jumping onto railings that you normally aren't supposed to get on. They have skips. They have stuff that is based on movement, but they don't have just like that thing that makes you just go a lot faster a lot of the time. Sekiro does. It's got a grapple hook, which is like, you want people to speedrun your game. You put either a dash or a grappling hook in it.
Or both.
And it's just like, it's super fast paced. It's got like really good sprinting to it and grappling hook. And the game is even more kind of like open-ended, non-linear gameplay than the Souls games already were. So which means that the routing for it's going to be so interesting, I think. I'm really excited. Like, it's one of those things too where the grappling hook, it just feels good. You don't get like super locked into animations. You can grapple from point to point to point really fast. There's going to be a lot of really cool strats around jumping off this specific piece of rock to get this max range grapple hook and stuff like that. I'm really interested to see where this game goes once everybody's like finished up their casual playthroughs. It's been, I mean, even I like looking at games as they're starting, but especially I'm looking forward to a few months from now where things are more starting to form, to actually kind of be more set on what a route is and what movement looks like in the game, what boss strategies there are. Because let me tell you, the boss strategies, like boss fights in this, are going to be so fun to watch. Like even with Dark Souls games, they're usually very fun to watch, but sometimes you can have a lot of bosses that are parry the boss, back up, wait for that move again, parry the boss, and then you're good to go, or something like that. This has so many more bosses that will not let you just do one parry and you're done. Like it's you're gonna have to do a lot more dodging, a lot more maximizing the amount of damage you can get in between attacks and stuff. It reminds me a lot of Kingdom Hearts bosses, actually, Kingdom Hearts 2 in particular, which I think is really cool. And I'm just looking forward to, I don't know if I personally will speedrun it yet, but I'm just looking forward to like seeing what that speedrun looks like a few months from now, and just all along the way as it starts to develop.
Yeah,
definitely.
I've watched like a couple speedruns, like, you know, early speedruns, of course, like things that live.
I'm still playing it casually, so I haven't watched any of them yet.
I don't care. Spoil me away. None of it makes sense. But no, the game looks super cool. I am pretty excited. Yeah, I'm not really a Dark Souls fan, like a Dark Souls speedrunning fan. Like it's just, it seems too like methodical for me, I guess. But like Sekiro seems like right up my alley, so I'm excited.
Plus, if you add, again, as HobZ was saying, if you add a grappling hook to anything, the movement possibilities just open up.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just fun to watch. Anything that has a grapple, it's fun movement.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right, Frozen, what you been doing lately?
So in general, last week's update is still in effect with all the just work stuff has been horrible. Lots of incidents. I was at work for 24 hours in the past 24 hours.
Oh jeez.
Just before the show, I actually just told them that one of the junior guys needed to step in. So that's been interesting. But other than that, on Sunday, actually got to get the I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and we got to get together with a bunch of different people from the speedrunning community. So got to meet up with some old friends like Ghoul, and then get to meet some new people who, like Palmer, I've seen around and I've talked to, but never actually got to meet him because he usually goes to like RPG Limit Break. So that was a great time, especially because we tried to do this in the past and it just kind of fell through. People forgot or slept through. But it was a blast, and we're hoping to continue it and do it on a monthly basis. More getting to hang out with speed friends is always a blast.
Yeah, I was gonna say speed friend meetups are always great.
Yeah, get to talk some speedrun stuff. I mean, it's not all that often that you get to do that in person. Usually just GDQs and whatever speedrun other like Calithon that you go to.
You got to figure out who has the space in their house or their apartment or whatever, and then suddenly you come in and there's 9 CRTs or 18 laptops or whatever set up, and suddenly you're all streaming it, and you got Southern Speedrunner Assembly or whatever, but for Texas. Oh man, that's cool. All right, well, anyone have any other things that have been going on for them lately? I think for the most part, the three of us have been so busy. And I feel like it's been like this for the last like 4 episodes.
Yep.
But we've been really busy to the point where we haven't been able to speedrun a lot of stuff ourselves. I don't know. Maybe I'll get to speedrun a little bit of Sekiro. That'd be cool.
Sometimes I could throw in a putt run or two.
There's something on my radar. We'll see. Maybe it's a big maybe. As I'm still playing through it, so we'll see.
Okay. Sekiro. All right, yeah, cool. Well, I got a couple of reminders for you folks as we close out here, and then we've got a couple of awesome clips at the end that we'll be playing as we head out. So registration for SGDQ is going to open up at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, March 28th. Yep. So that's 2 days from now, and actually about an hour earlier than right now, 2 days from now. Registration goes in a couple phases, but it usually fills up pretty quick. So if you're planning on going, highly recommend jumping on that. Were you just going to say that same thing?
Exact same thing, yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that it was covered in there.
Yeah. On top of that, games list, we talked about it earlier. The games list is coming out tomorrow. We were joking. We're like, we gotta get it released a day early so we could just talk about it on the show. But no, that's not how it rolls.
It's a bit of unfortunate timing, but alas.
But yeah, tomorrow night, it's usually, I mean, I don't think there's a hard time, but it's usually in the evening on the Pacific time zone on the West Coast. So just keep that in mind. Games list will tell you what games are going to be at GDQ, and keep in mind that there's usually accepted games and bonus games that are shown, and sometimes if you think your super popular game should have gotten in, maybe check the bonus games because it might not be in the accepted list. Other than that, then tomorrow on the Games Done Quick channel again, we've got Kusa Grande, who's been doing an invitational with Games Done Quick recently. They are back again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, so an hour earlier than when the show started. And that is always a fun time to watch. And I believe I'm just stalling now because I think there's a couple extra things that Hannah wants to tell me to do. There is a Twitter poll for an upcoming show for the Spotlight. I believe you do !Spotlight in the chat. It should work. But if not, check the Games Done Quick Twitter, because there's a poll and you get to choose which game that you want to see in an upcoming Hotfix show, which is super cool. And that's going to be a regular running thing. So stay tuned on Twitter for that. Volunteer selections are also opening tomorrow, as are prize submissions for SGDQ. So keep that all in mind. A lot of stuff happening tomorrow, basically.
Yep.
Week of GDQ things.
That's why we're busy. Who knew?
Yeah, exactly. And with that, we will go ahead and say good night. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We do this every other week on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. So please, if you enjoyed, we pretty much always do a world record segment or a speedrun analysis segment. So, and
stay tuned for some great clips. I mean, they're really fun. I like them all.
I want to preface these as, this is when you world record on stage versus world record at home. We'll see y'all next time.
Have a good one, guys.
Nice on. Birdie birdie.
That, my friends, is a gigantic world record.
Is it really?
Yes, that is huge.
Tell us when time is coming up.
Time.
Okay, yeah, right there. Perfect.
Oh, wow. I gotta calm down, dude. That's a...
You got the standing ovation.
Thank you, thank you. The previous world record's 52:42.
Wow, and there you go, $21,000. How about that, too?
Thank you so much, thank you. Oh my gosh.
There you go.
Well, what can I say? I don't even know what to say.
Holy shit, Sneaker Pod.
Yes, dude. Yes. Yes. Fuck yes. Fuck yes, dude. Fuck this shit. Holy fucking shit. Let's fucking go. Woo! Yes, let's go, dude. Yeah, let's go. You did it. Let's